Hi everyone, welcome to Darien Library. Thank you so much for coming out on this beautiful fall morning. I would just like to briefly mention that programs at the library are made possible by our annual Friends of the Library campaign. So thank you for your continued support to make programs like these available to the community. Our presenters today are going to be discussing on a panel about busy moms and how to start your own business. And moderating the panel today will be Holly Hurd, this lovely lady next to me, who started a business called VentureMom.com. And I'm going to let her take it away and talk more about that. So thank you, Holly.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to have this wonderful facility in our town to have events like this. I told the AV gal I'm right-handed, and in my mind when I was doing this, I thought the podium would be on that side, so I'm a little off on my left hand, right hand. It's nice to see so many women in the audience interested in small business. God knows with the current economy we need new small businesses creating jobs and income for women and men as well. In fact, that's the reason that I started Venture Mom. In my life, I was meeting so many women who wanted to start a new business or a new venture. And either number one, they weren't sure what they wanted to do, and or number two, they weren't sure where to begin. The women I was meeting had left the workforce to raise their children, and they wanted to go back to work, but they didn't want to commute, or they needed to work only 2 or 3 days a week, or they needed to be home from 3 to 5, or they needed to drop their children off. I met women who were working full-time but weren't 100% fulfilled in what they were doing, and they had a passion that they did on the side, and they wanted to start a business around that passion. I also met a lot of women who just simply needed extra income to help support their families or to have their own spending money. Conversely, at the same time, I was meeting these fabulous women who had created businesses literally out of thin air. And I dubbed them venture moms. And so I had an idea. Why don't I interview these wonderful venture moms that I was meeting and share their stories with my audience online, because online was big at the time and is big now. So what I do, I started interviewing women, and what I like to cover is the path that the woman takes, because I could say, oh, here's this great woman and she has a cookie business and now she sells in Whole Foods. But for the audience, how do you get from A to Z? So I like to cover the path of for example, one cookie woman I covered, she and her daughter had a gluten allergy. So she made these wonderful gluten-free cookies. She served them to her friends, and they enjoyed them. Then she said, well, why don't I sell these at the local farmer's market? They sold, and then the local health food store said, oh, we like those, will you make them for the health food store? Then a distributor saw them, and now they're in Whole Foods. So I think for me, and what I like to focus on, is the path and how you get there and how the idea actually germinated. So each week in my e-letter, blog, and on my site, I cover a different venture mom. And in the last about 2.5 years now, I've covered over 100 moms. And they're diverse in 3 ways. First of all, geographically diverse. I cover moms all over the country and hopefully all over the world. I have a mom I'm covering in Canada in a couple of weeks. They're also diverse in what they focus on. I cover moms that have fashion ventures, jewelry ventures, food ventures, cooking, books, web services, animal products, animal services, baby products, baby classes, exercise classes, everything in between. They're also diverse in size and time commitment. I cover moms who might spend as little as 4 hours a week. A mom in North Carolina who cleans dogs' teeth and charges $25, and she roams around on Saturdays and Sundays and cleans dogs' teeth. She used to be a dental assistant. She loves animals, and it's a service that she found people needed. Or a mom who makes sweet potato dog chips in her spare time at night, and she sells them to vets. All the way up to the mom who has a full-fledged clothing line with people she outsources to and clothing reps. And a mom who started a phone app, and she has 9 employees, and everything in between. So The diversity geographically, what the moms focus on and what their time commitment is. So those are the ways that it's diverse. But what I found in interviewing the moms over the last 2.5 years is that there are a lot of commonalities that I've seen in the successful venture moms, and I found 5. So the first one is that successful venture moms generally start a venture around a passion or something that they already do in their life. Maybe it's the mom who makes a necklace and their friend says, "Oh my God, I love that, will you make one for me?" Or the mom makes, I don't know, a bracelet or an itty bitty bag, and someone says, "Oh my God, I want to buy that, you should sell those." Or something they already do in their life. I have a sister-in-law who makes these amazing ice cream cakes. I don't know how she does it or what she puts in them, but she could make those and sell them to restaurants in her local area. So the number one commonality is it's usually something that is already in the mom's life, and it's something that the mom is incredibly passionate about. The second commonality is friends and family. If you tell everyone you know that you're starting a venture and you tell them what it is, they're going to want to help you. Inevitably, the friend will say, "Oh my God, I know this person you need to talk to, or this person can help you, or this person can help you source beads or fabric or whatever." I covered one mom she was actually a real estate lawyer, but she was a young mom and she wanted to have her phone accessible on her stroller. She missed a call from a pediatrician digging through her bag, so she said, "Why doesn't anyone make a little hook that would put on the, hook on the stroller, and her phone would sit there?" She said, "Gosh, I could play music for my baby. I could even do a walking exercise video, and when the pediatrician called, it would be right there." She looked in the stores, it didn't exist. She knew nothing about production, plastics, distribution, anything. But she told everyone she knew about the idea, and it turns out her husband's father's friend was in the plastics business. Now, he couldn't help her, but he had a friend who could. She met with him. He helped her build a prototype. She took the prototype around to the baby stores in her town, pre-sold her first order, and now she's in baby stores around the country, and it's called Text Hook. So when you tell everyone you know what you're doing, everyone will want to help you. I mean, frankly, you could start a business with one email because you have a network now, and it's so easy to reach your friends and family. The third commonality, and I know maybe the MBAs in the audience won't appreciate this, but 98% of the women that I talk with do not have a business plan. In fact, they don't even have something scribbled on the back of a napkin. They just sort of get started and roll into it. Now, unless you're asking for money, if you're asking someone for money, they're going to want to see a very well thought out business plan. But this brings me to my fourth commonality, which is 98% of the women that I talk with have used little to no startup capital. And the majority of them are self-funded. And if they do need startup capital, it's a minimal amount. So that's the fourth commonality. The fifth commonality is they didn't wait until things were perfect. As women, sometimes we like everything to be right. Well, I've got to have my business cards. I've got to have my logo. I've got to have my name. I want purple and orange are going to be my colors, but that purple's not quite right. I need to keep searching until I find the right purple for the business card. You're never going to get off the starting block, and what I found with the successful venture moms is they sort of just get started. They just roll into it and learn as they go, or figure out their logo, or their name becomes theirname.com, or whatever it is. They just start moving forward. So those are the 5 commonalities that I have found in successful venture moms, and we're going to see how they tie into our fabulous panelists here. And I want to introduce everyone on the panel now so you can know who we're talking with. First, I have Stacey Bewkes, who has the wonderful Quintessence blog, which covers art and architecture, interiors and design, fashion, jewelry, books, movies, food, wine, travel, and so much more. Stacey is the style editor for Women's Voices for Change. She's a contributor to Cottages and Gardens. She speaks around the country, including the Fashion Group International's Regional Directors Conference at Condé Nast. She's been featured in, or her blog has been featured in Elle Decor, Connecticut Cottage and Gardens, New England Home Magazine, and she was selected by Traditional Home as one of the 10 design bloggers for the spring issue of Trad Home, and I know she's still working very closely with them. Next we have Jennifer St. John, who left a very big job on Wall Street to stay home and be with her children, but being a type A personality, she did not sit still for long. She made a little bag for her friends' bridesmaids and showed her friends the bag on Facebook, and before she knew it, she had everyone who wanted the bag, and now she runs the Itty Bitty Bag Company using Etsy as her platform. And every handbag and accessory is handmade, no outsourcing, no mass production, so that is a busy mom. Then we have Jennifer Covello, who has Fritabello Baby products, and her flagship product is a baby journal entitled My Life. So she wrote her own journal, and she published a blueprint to help other moms and parents write their own baby journals. And she's won several awards, and she's also now started a baby journaling workshop to get moms and dads moving forward. It's called Put Your Love on Paper. And last on the panel we have Gwynne, Tibbetts, and Bambi Riegel, who are recent venture moms. They were in my feature this week, and they started RT Pictureworks. They both had a background in photography and video production, and one day Gwynne was talking to her friends and said, I really want to start doing videos for people. And the friend said, oh my God, you have to talk with Bambi. And the two got together and they started their company, and now they photograph all kinds of events and create videos for athletic banquets, birthdays, graduations, rehearsal dinners, and do a lot of work for corporations. And I'm very grateful for all the venture moms here today, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say. So I want to get started with Stacey, and sort of our first question for everyone is, and this points back to the path to starting your venture. So I would love to hear you talk a little bit about the germination of your venture and sort of how you got started, and maybe we'll start with Stacey.
Okay. Basically, I was just one of those people who had way too much information. I was the person everybody used to come to because they knew I'd know. Obsessive researcher, reader, everywhere, online, magazines. I mean, if you saw my house, I just have piles and piles and piles. Magazines, books, printouts, it's, you know, actually the main of my existence right now. But I don't remember when I started or why I started reading blogs, but I did. Primarily interior design blogs. I somehow found out about them and started reading a few. And I thought, wow, you know, this is fun and this is something that interests me. And as Holly knows, I told her if I had shown my husband one more thing and said, oh, look, isn't this cool? I think he would have killed me. So I needed another outlet. Someone else to show my cool things to. So I actually do not fall into one of the categories, which was the just starting. I am a recovering perfectionist. And I actually almost didn't get started because getting the site up was overwhelming. If I had known everyone I know now, I probably would have asked someone for help, but I didn't know who to ask. So I had to learn some code, I had to, you know, that took me a long time, that took me months. And, but once I was up, it somehow did free me up, and I became less obsessed about all the details. Let's see, what else? So I just started. I started while I was on vacation. I was on Nantucket, and I had, of course, had weeks of posts already lined up with all the things I loved and all the things I was interested in. And I did send out an email to maybe, I don't know, 30 friends to tell them I was starting. And that's how I started, and it started very slowly. I think my only readers were like 5 friends, and and then one friend would tell another, and I knew it was going okay when I'd go to Palmer's, and someone would come up to me and say, "Oh, I love your blog," and I was like, "Oh, okay, someone's reading." So it just kept going, and I would gradually start to get invited to things for people who wanted me to write about things, and it just snowballed to the point now where last night I think I was invited to 5 events at the same time in the city. So you have to choose, obviously, what you can go to. I will say to anyone who's even remotely thinking about starting a blog, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I had a friend who came over one day to ask me to help him with his Facebook page. And my husband was sitting next to me in the kitchen. He said to me, "Oh, how much time do you think you spend doing this?" And I said, "Well, probably about 8 to 10 hours a day." And my husband looked at me sideways. And I said, "What, you think I do that more?" He said, "If she's awake, she's working." And that's pretty much true. It becomes obviously you don't have to make it that way, but if you talk to any even reasonably successful bloggers, you will discover they work all the time. But it's also addictive because, as Holly said, which is so true, you have to do something you're passionate about. You are so involved both in time and in energy. It's never going to work unless it's something that you are obsessed with. I remember when I was in college and I went to a very progressive school in the post SDS era, and it was so not cool. Fashion was not cool. If you wore anything other than carpenter's pants, and you were socially ostracized. And I remember being in the place where, the coffee place where we used to hang out, was called the Blue Room, and I remember hanging out in the Blue Room and having my Vogue inside my textbook. Anybody could see what I was reading. But clearly this has been an obsession that's been going on for a long time, and now I get to do it 24 hours a day, so it's great.
People are listening to you. So Jennifer, do you want to talk about how you got started and where you are now?
Sure. So Holly kind of shared how I got started with making a clutch for all the bridesmaids, and but my obsession with sewing probably started long before that. My mother was a seamstress, my great-grandmother was a seamstress. I actually can't sew dresses quite as well as my mother does, but that's okay. She also can't work with silk, and I can, so I can remember the first time was probably when I redecorated. I've been also obsessed with interior design for as long as I can remember, and I redecorated my whole room. I couldn't find curtains to match my linen, so I hand-stitched them and made these beautiful curtains, and I was in a freshman in high school. So it's always been there. Whenever I can find something, I always made it, or if I found something and I was just like, who's going to pay that? I made it. Just because, I felt like there was a reasonable price, and I knew what certain things cost and what the labor was, and I wasn't going to pay their markup, so I made it. So then I was working actually 60 hours a week or more for Morgan Stanley. I went back to work after the birth of my second daughter, and I was breastfeeding at the time, taboo subject. And but they were actually phenomenal. They had great rooms for us, but she refused, and so every day I ushered myself from New York to Stanford during my lunch break, and then went back to work, and then rushed, to get them at the end of the day, and it was a nightmare. It really was. My older daughter was starting kindergarten, and I quickly realized all the things that I was going to miss. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I love my job. I actually am probably the anomaly. I loved what I did. I was very passionate about it, and it was good, and I liked it. And it just wasn't worth it for me. So again, I just can't sit still ever. I never sit during the day. I'm always busy walking around doing something. It's good that the sewing portion of my business is so small compared to all the other things that I do. whether it be cutting, pressing, measuring twice, all of that stuff does not require me to sit still. I also get out a fair amount and teach. I teach people how to run an Etsy shop. And so when my best friend was getting married, I decided to make these little clutches, and it was such a thrill for me to make them and see everyone's reaction. I said, we're all going through this big bag phase, and I've never really been a big bag kind of girl. So I decided to make myself a little bag. It was made out of fabric actually from the first nursery that I decorated. And so it was sentimental fabric, and I made it, posted a picture, and lo and behold, the orders kept coming in. And so then I said, well, I need to do something a little bit different than wait for the check in the mail, because that's the way I did it. So they would send me a check, and I'd send off their bag. So I remember hearing about Etsy in about 2005, and said, I'm going to take a look at them again. And I decided to choose Etsy over an eBay because my bags are not Louis Vuitton, they're not, a Kate Spade, so my little bags would be going against, the vintage or gently used ones that are on eBay. And since Etsy is a handmade marketplace, I thought it was the perfect fit. The first 100 sales are probably the hardest, and now, approaching 1,000 sales, just as hard as the first 100. It is an all-day process. There's not a single point in time during the day that I'm not thinking about my business, doing something for my business, whether I'm doing the dishes, whether I'm helping the kids with their homework. On the weekends, my kids are in my office with me. They love to be in there, and they love to be a part of it. Mom, what can we do to help you? Oh, here's some stickers. Take these, craft bags, sticker them, and stuff tissue paper in them for my next show. They're like, this is fantastic. This is a dream come true for them to be a part of this business. Secretly, I think the 8-year-old is trying to take over the business, but I'm giving her a little bit of time before we let her do that. So.
Great. Jennifer, you want to talk about Fritabello and how you got started with the baby journaling?
So my business started in my head on, let's call it November 25th, 1997. That was the day I came home with my son. And like all of the moms here, giving birth is probably about the most empowering thing that a woman can do, in my opinion. I was so full of love for this little boy that I wanted to write down everything that had happened from the time going up to labor till the moment I got home. So I grabbed a composition notebook, because it was all I had, and I just started writing every single detail about him. And I didn't stop. I kept going, and when my daughter was born in 2001, I did the exact same thing for her, not in the composition notebook, a little bit nicer of a journal. And I kept thinking, I can't wait till the day when I give this to them. And I wonder what their reaction is going to be. They're going to see their life from my viewpoint and all of the things that they accomplished, but not in a chronological, did this on this date at this time, more like a story. So I thought, what a wonderful gift this is going to be to them one day, and every kid should have this. So I decided that I wanted to create a journal that parents could do this for their children. I went out and researched other kinds of journals and baby books, and they were very much that demographic milestone, check off here, cold, if I may, type of book, so not what I wanted. So I had an extra baby book up in my attic that I had received as a gift that I didn't use or like. And I said, well, let me work with this and see if I can prototype it into what I want. So I got some fabric and I put it on it, and I taped over some of the entries and put what I thought might be a good idea. And I set that book on my nightstand so that I could have it in my mind all the time and think, what can I do, what can I do? 6 months went by and I didn't look at it. And I finally one day I saw this mound of something on the table, and I said, this is not going to work. It's not what I want. It's not the vision I have, and I don't like it. I took the whole thing and I threw it in the garbage. I walked over to my right. And I sat down and I wrote the journal from start to finish at every applicable milestone time, 1 month, 3 months, 1 year. And I wanted this to be personalized so that it would reflect my own journey of being a mom. But I also wanted it to trigger a memory of the moms that were, or dads or grandmas, lots of folks do these, that would trigger a memory for that child. So I researched, well, what's supposed to happen at 3 months so that I could reflect some of the developmental milestones, but also reflect what was going on in that child's life. What was I personally thinking of and going through? So it really ends up becoming a personalized story for the child, and it prevents the writer's block that people say that they have when they go to write their journal. I don't know what to write. It's a blank page. So hopefully the inspirational messaging that I put in the beginning of each chapter will not only provoke a memory, but it will inspire you to write.
And now you teach a class helping others.
I do. It occurred to me after doing a couple of baby shows that I was hearing 3 things over and over. One was, I don't know what to write, I don't have time, and it's too late. It's too late. My child is 2, my child is too old, and I forgot it. So I thought, all right, well, I have a baby journal product, let me teach people how to use it. So I started baby journaling workshops where I debunked those 3 myths in 2 minutes with a very simple exercise. And not only did people realize that they knew exactly what to write, that they remembered everything, even though they thought they didn't, and there was no writer's block. And they could start at any time.
What a great keepsake for people to give to their children.
Thank you.
So maybe Bambi and Gwynne, would you like to talk about what you're doing and how you came up with the idea?
We've been friends for a long time, which has been great, but unaware of each other's real interests. And I think one of the things when people say do what you love, you're like, what is that? You go back into your life to the common threads. And I know that my first job, I wanted to have something that was kind of art, but sort of business oriented or marketing. I loved marketing and thinking of ideas. And then I ended up working at Museum Magazine, which was in the marketing department for art museums. Then I went from there to the Smithsonian, which was marketing, and then for marketing you end up doing a lot of visual, because media has changed so much. And I started producing videos for Smithsonian, and then decided I love this so much, I want to do it for everyone, and went out on my own to start producing videos. Became a freelancer and finding jobs in all sorts of industries. When you are working on a job, it's pretty full-time. And when I had kids, I realized I couldn't be doing that full-time because the schedule was so hard to manage. It wasn't a routine. So I ended up coming back here and then doing the other thing I love, which is creative and painting, and began to call myself a painter. And that's one of the other things you've got to start doing when you start a business is just call yourself what you are. Because that helps people define who you are, and then they know who to go to when they need something. So when my kids are a little bit older, they're in high school and college now, I'm like, I've got to do, I still paint, but that's a very solitary thing, and I like to be with people. So I went with talking to a friend. She goes, well, what did you do before? And I said, I video produced. And she goes, that's what Bambi's thinking about doing. So she said, you must talk to her. And we talked, and we're like, let's do it. And that's the other thing that's the commonality is you've just got, you start. And you start finding out along the way how to adjust, and you have to be flexible and keep adjusting.
You know, a lot of the moms that I interview have partners. Maybe what have you found to be the advantages of having a partner? And I know you mentioned the social aspect and being with people is great. What are you seeing as helpful in having a partner?
I think it's great to have a partner, and that's maybe one thing that prevented me from starting out on my own sooner than I did, is I think it's always more fun to go through everything with someone else and brainstorm together and get excited about it and market yourselves and interact with other people, etc. And so photography, making videos has been a passion of mine for quite some time, and got kind of dabbling in it after leaving a career on Wall Street by people kind of saying, oh, you take great pictures. Okay, there's an event. You're going to go shoot this event, and you're going to figure out how to upload your pictures on a website. Okay, I'll figure that out. And I did it. And then I love sports, and I was taking all these pictures doing sports and some film and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we need a highlight tape done for our child. I'm going to hire you. Well, I've never done a highlight tape. You can figure it out. You're good at this. So anyways, it was just kind of running with some passions and some things that I've been doing for a while that made me start thinking, oh, I really should start a business at this. People seem to like what they do. They have confidence in me. They think that I can do it. I've proven myself. Oh, but I really don't know if I want to do it on my own, And then when Gwynne and I finally got together, I'm like, okay, that's the kick in the butt I needed. We're doing it. And plus the husband was like, you need to formalize yourself here. I'm not quite comfortable with what you're doing. And so anyways, so it's great having a partner. I love it.
Because it is the hardest thing to do it out on your own. While you can, it's really nice to just go, so what do you think of this? Great idea. We're very...
Well, you know what, I also find that many women are afraid to put themselves out there with their venture, and if they're going hand in hand with another person out in the world with their venture, it makes it easier and gives them a little bit more confidence. You brought up a very good point, several of you. Computers, for our generation, we didn't grow up with them, and our children spend a lot of time teaching us how to use them. So the technical aspect of starting, whether it's a blog or an online store, or even when computers are your business, I know when I started, I could not even cut and paste a photo until I asked my son how to do it. And now, through the learning curve and just figuring it out as I went along, I now update my own website and can easily move photos around and put together newsletters and the blog. So my question to the panel is, what were the technical issues that you had? What did you have to learn? Who did you go to? How did you learn? And did you learn as you went along? I know, Stacey, you mentioned a little bit of that, but anyone else want to comment on what their learning curve was? Or Stacey, how you figured it out?
Well, it's funny because I jogged my memory listening to Bambi say something. The way this whole thing started for me actually was that when my youngest went to Pear-Tree, and when she was in her final year in 5th grade, someone approached me who knew what I used to do. I was an art director at a publishing house for almost 20 years. And she walked up to me and said, oh, by the way, I volunteered you to do the 5-year retrospective DVD that's going to be shown at graduation. And I was like, excuse me? And she said, oh, you can do it. Do it. And I thought, oh my God. And of course, I had never done anything like that. So I can highly recommend this to anybody who's interested in doing anything on the computer. Next time you buy an Apple product, get the one-to-one. If any of you have done this, it is the best investment you will ever make. It costs $99 and you get unlimited lessons at the store. I literally lived at the Apple store in Stanford for about 3 months. I would be there 3 to 4 hours a day learning how to use iMovie. Anyway, I ended up making this. I got totally addicted and compulsive about it, like I do everything else, and finished this movie, and it turned out great, and that is what jump-started me in this whole sort of creative process again. So that, in terms of learning curve, that was my biggest learning curve. Then setting up the blog was the next one. But there's constantly things. I'm very invested in social media, and every new social media tool is a learning curve. But you somehow learn it. You can get help from your friends, your kids. You can go, I became friends with actually one of the girls at the Apple store who showed me how to do all sorts of things. Every time I go somewhere, every time I have time to kill at Grand Central, I go up to the Apple store, and somebody there shows me something new. So
You can figure it out, and it must be very empowering when you say, oh my God, I can do that.
Yeah, and I would say, again, with our business too, again, it's being current, it's knowing the newest software, so we're constantly learning new software. We started with iMovie, now we're using something else called Final Cut Pro, and it's just fascinating. And again, talk about getting charged up. I mean, we leave that Apple Store, I'm like, this is so cool, I can't wait to go and work on this. And
It's fun and empowering to learn new stuff.
Yeah, new things, and that's what keeps it so interesting too working, is you're always learning new things, and you're getting so excited about it. And then you're implementing it in a project that you're working on. And it's really cool, and Gwynne and I have made a lot of friends down at Apple too.
Sure.
And building our website, it was like, oh, we can do this. Well, maybe we can't do this totally by ourselves. We're gonna need some help, and it was networking and figuring out who. And then, educating ourselves on how to do that. So it's really cool, and every day there's something else
Something new.
that you're figuring out. And it's neat, so not only you're doing your basic core business, but you're supplementing it and making it better and differentiating yourself because you are current and working with the latest technology that's out there.
A lot of the venture moms that I interview have products and want online stores. So maybe Jennifer St. John could speak to a little bit about, now I know Etsy, it has to be homemade. So maybe you want to talk about your experiences with setting up your online store on Etsy and how did you have a learning curve in figuring out?
Well, there's definitely a huge learning curve for Etsy and trying to figure it all out, which is why I started teaching Etsy 101. So to give people that jump start and sort of break it down piece by piece for them to have an understanding of what needs to be done. So because it's an online store, your photographs are all you have, really. And then the second most important thing is your description. But if you don't have a good photo, people are just going to keep moving on. You may find some people that just really need that item and they look past the horrible picture, but most often it's going to be a no sale at that point. So there's definitely a learning curve with Etsy, but they do provide the functionality for you, so you don't really have to develop it yourself. You just have to understand how to use it.
And do they have a help service? I find that a lot of these...
They take you through online step by step what you need to do. They provide teaching classes, videos, and so forth to how to improve your photography. They're constantly trying to help you become a better business person because ultimately they make money off of you being successful.
Right.
But only a very little bit amount. There was research the other day that 96% of the money generated through Etsy went to the shop owners. 4% went to Etsy, and they're that successful.
That's great.
So it's a fantastic group. I love working with them. As far as the other technology aspect, I do have ittybittyBag.com as my website. But I can take no credit for that whatsoever. But what I can take credit for is the fact that my husband now has so many skills he never had. So I have to give him a ton of credit for that. But also, given my company, he's quite a photographer himself. He won't ever admit it, but he takes beautiful pictures. So he's always been interested in design and graphic design. So he has actually been, my second in command in creating my brand imaging and helping me with that. But there is definitely a learning curve for social media as well, and all the things that come up and what I need to know and being current and so forth that I do all by myself. So.
Well, that was my next question. Social media in the world today, from Facebook to Twitter to now Instagram, which I don't know how to use yet, and Pinterest. I know with a blog, social media is huge. When you have a product, learning how to post on Twitter without saying every time, buy my product. Do you want to speak to whoever about what you talk about on Twitter and how it's sort of a soft sell? You talk about one thing, but then they go to your site to buy your bag.
I can tell you what my last tweet was because it'll gross everybody out. That was my tweet, And so the funny thing is that I think for each piece of social media, there's a purpose for it. And if you try and, push yourself and it's not the right venue, you're just going to turn people off. So for example, Facebook personal, that's for my family, right? And Facebook, my business page, I share with people upcoming events, or if I have a new product, maybe even some other things, like if I find a really cool tutorial, I might post that to Facebook. Twitter's for all the people that I wish I went to high school with. They are my friends, they have become my friends. Even people locally, I wouldn't have met them if it weren't for Twitter. I mean, we've met each other in real life, and they're just as fabulous in person as they are on Twitter. So that's really the differentiation. I don't use Instagram for work, though maybe I might set up a separate account, because I take so many great pictures with Instagram of my children that I don't want those all over the place. So I may need to come up with a different account for that, and then share some of those photos, because I do enjoy photography. I'll take my phone with me when I'm out running, and I'll see something beautiful, and I will stop and take a picture of it. So those kinds of things will interest people, and then, oh, she also makes bags, so you don't have to throw it down people's throats. Tweeting your shop every 5 minutes, I'm going to unfollow you. It's not cool. I would rather get to know you as a person and then fall in love with your product.
Well, I think, Jennifer Covello, you started a parenting blog that's not about your journal, but you can mention, they get to know you through the parenting blog and appreciate your advice. And oh, by the way, I do sell and offer classes in journaling.
Right. I think it's very much like what Jennifer said, is that people do business with you for 3 reasons. They know you, they like you, and they trust you. And if you're doing anything on any website or social media that's harming that relationship, they will unfollow you, and that hurts your brand. So, like Jennifer as well, I have a personal page for Facebook, and I have a business page. Now, once in a while, I will cross over into my business page, because I'm a person. It's not mass-produced, product, and so I want them to get a little insight into who I am. And so I'll post things on the Fritabello Facebook page, but there's also a line of delineation that you don't cross, because you are your brand.
Jennifer, I'd love for you, that one of my next questions was how you all got your names, and I think your story of the name, and I think the name of your venture can be a huge asset and help you brand what you're doing and move you forward, and the wrong name can also hurt you. But there's so many it could be anything, so maybe I'd love for everyone to say how they got their name. Start with maybe Jennifer, because...
Okay. So Fritabello is named after my son Christopher, who was the inspiration for the journal to begin with. So his name is Christopher Covello, pretty big name, to which he still reminds me. But he couldn't pronounce it all that well as a child, so he called himself Fritabello. And so that became his nickname. We all called him Fritabello, Fritabello, Fritabello.
That's a great...
And it stuck. And so when it came time to name the company, there was no other choice for me. So he loves it and hates it all at the same time, because he is now almost 15, and then I'm in the paper and his friends say, Fritabello, Fritabello. Not so cool for a teenager, but it reminds me every day of why I do this.
Right. And Bambi, Gwynne?
Well, when we got together, we did decide we need a name for our company and what we do. And I think you were working with something called Pictureworks, which we thought encompassed everything, sort of visual. Still photography, video, anything you can think of. And then RT, Riegel, Tibbetts. So that was simple to the point, and we just got the point across.
That's great.
And our name isn't really something that is going to make us or break us. In this case, it really is. Ours is so personal because we do videos for you, that our business is going to be mostly word of mouth.
But it tells what you do. I mean, picture works. And sometimes the simplest
It's not
things.
elaborate, this is the business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Itty Bitty Bag?
I actually, again, can't really take credit for that as well. We were trying to brainstorm some different ideas, and my husband came up with it because the first bag was so itty bitty. So, and then I can sort of live up to that name because I'm 5'2", and I have 2 little girls at home, which someday will be taller than me. But anyway, it's...
And the first one you made was the size for the bridesmaids to simply hold a phone and lip gloss. Itty bitty. Stacey.
I, of course, obsessed over it. And it took me a while, but I was interested, I still am, I'm interested in and write about things that tend to be best in class. So I wanted something that expressed that was a word that encompassed that concept. A friend of mine has a blog called All the Best, and which was sort of a similar concept, but I didn't want something that wordy. I wanted something very simple. And it actually was very fortuitous for several reasons. First of all, I didn't want my name out there when I was first starting. I was very uncomfortable with putting myself out there. So my name is not anywhere. I have people who write me and say, by the way, what's your name? I want to write you an email, and I can't find your name anywhere. I mean, now it's more, but so people on Twitter, when I started on Twitter, started calling me Q. And that sort of stuck. So my name on Twitter is, some people call me Stacey, obviously, but a lot of people call me Q, and it's great because it's short for that 140 on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing that worked out well is Quintessence is a long name, and on Twitter, having a long handle, a reasonably long handle, is actually rather advantageous. Because, I don't want to go into the whole thing, but when you retweet someone, okay, how can I say this very succinctly? If you're retweeting someone, you generally take your own name out, and when you take a long name out, that buys you a lot more space to say what you want to say. So it turned out to be a good thing.
I got it. You know, I want to talk about research, and I have 2 theories. Don't do it, because sometimes that can scare you too much when you see what everyone else is doing in your space. And it scares people to know that maybe there are 50 moms who are doing exactly what you're doing, and you're not going to be able to compete with them. But my advice in that realm is everyone has their own voice and their own audience and their own clients. The other tenet is do the research, because you're going to get ideas and figure out where you're going to go. So my question for the panel is, did you do research? Did it help you? Did it hurt you? And how did you use it?
I can start.
Okay.
Well, because my product is somewhat of a commodity, if you go to Hallmark, you'll see a ton of baby books and baby journals. So I did want to see what was out there. And none of them really represented what the vision I had for a baby journal. So that part was good. It gave me a sense of I can make this different. But then as I started to develop the product and start to sell it, I saw a lot more baby journals out there, and it was a little bit intimidating. But I thought, you know what? No one else wrote it like me. No one else talks about baby journaling like me, and I can make this different in my own way. So I would recommend that you do a little bit of research for ideas and creativity, but not to let it stop you, because there's always something different and unique that you can add to it no matter what. And guess what? You know, there's only one Steve Jobs and one Apple. You know, really, really different, unique, never seen before things are pretty rare. So there will be a million people after me making baby journals, but I'll still have that unique difference of where it came from.
I think the most important part is definitely differentiating yourself, having your own thing. If you go onto Etsy and you just click on bags and purses, it is probably one of the biggest categories on Etsy, and you can buy bags and purses all over the world. So that can feel a little bit daunting. And, so when that happens, you think, well, how is it possible that I've had, this number of sales already? And I think that's because, as we said before, it's people getting to know who you are and valuing, what you do, what you say, and advice, help. I mean, I get people asking me questions all the time. So I think that kind of loyalty is certainly what differentiates you from somebody else, because a bag is not original. We all can buy the fabric from pretty much the same sources and vendors. Maybe they're not all stitched the same. Maybe the attention to detail is not the same. There could be some variations there, but for the most part, there are a lot of bags and purses out there. So that can feel a little overwhelming.
But you're also using your social media to drive people to your particular Etsy site and branding yourself through other forms of social media.
Right. So what my point is that it could feel very discouraging.
Yes.
Does there
Yes.
need to be another bag and purse out there? Yes, there do. Everybody could always use another bag or purse for this occasion, that occasion, and it's like shoes. I mean, I'll go into my closet. I don't have any shoes to wear. It doesn't work with this outfit, so I need another pair of shoes. And it's not the same for guys that could have one wallet and black and brown shoes, maybe a red shoe, but it's very, very different for women. So I think, if you want to make bags and purses, go get them.
And trends change all the time.
They do. Yeah.
Yes. So the other thing that I've learned with venture moms is that they have an idea of where they're going to go when they start out. But inevitably, they end up somewhere else, or they get to a point where they never dreamed. The cookie mom selling at the health food store never dreamed her cookies would be in Whole Foods. So my question to the panel is, did you have an idea of what you thought your venture was going to be? And now Stacey, certainly, you were writing a blog for your friends, and now it's amazing. And maybe for the fledglings you guys have just started out, but maybe you have plans. So what are your plans? Are you somewhere else than you thought you would be? And what are your plans for the future for your growth? Or maybe where you are right now is okay because of your kids' ages?
I think for us, we have a pretty good understanding of where we want to be. And I think, just being sort of clear, like this is what we want to produce videos, and we see ourselves doing, multiple projects for corporations, individuals, events. We see it kind of going on pretty clearly going forward. And so our vision hasn't changed that much. I mean, how you do it shifts because of the software you use or the type of project. But
do you see yourself maybe starting a blog showing some of your projects that you've done so people can see?
I think our website is going to be the most effective place to see things at this point, where that will keep changing with information that we have. We'll put on the most recent things we do. So that'll be, for now, I think, our evolving information source. So people know us, hear about us, go on our webpage, check us out, see if they like what we do. And then we can talk from there.
Okay.
And just to speak to that too, Gwynne mentioned, we've done a little bit of corporate work, but we think too, there's a gala. We would love to be the ones who have produced the video for the gala event, for the fundraising for the gala campaign event that you all might be attending. And that's kind of a challenge and a goal of ours, is to how to break into that market and how to be the one. And with that comes a lot of media is given to us when we first started out in our projects, and we worked with pictures and film that were given by individuals, and then, our, creative juices start going, and then we're like, oh, wait a second, we're gonna film this. We've got an idea here, we're gonna run with this. So then we have supplemented our videos with our own film and our own pictures as we get on tangents. And as I see when we break into hopefully the gala market or whatever, again, we will be more involved in interviewing and interfacing at a school or, at a YMCA and participating and attending some of the classes and whatnot. And actually, be doing more of the raw footage that is within the video.
Sure.
So,
I saw one of your
cool.
fabulous birthday videos, and the pieces that you all inserted were really fun. Do you want to speak to sort of how you put that together? And
Well, I think, when you're given, in this case, certain media. And in our case, for most of us, you have the photographs, the old-fashioned photographs, you have the digital photographs, you have the baby videos and all these different, so you have all these different forms you're putting together, but you need something segueing them. And it's the same thing, you're just putting a story together. You're creating a book, yeah. Beginning, middle, and end with the little chapters. And sometimes you want to add those chapters, and we're like, well, we've got to go film this thing.
Yeah, and like my favorite thing is when I run, and I love to run, and I go out running, and I'm listening to my app, oh my God, this is a great song, and I've got an idea for this. We've got to go film this, Gwynne, you know, and vice versa. And so it's just the bells and whistles go off. And again, we're passionate about it, and we get so excited about it. And again, my husband is like, are you on that computer again? That project was done. Oh, no, it's not.
So let me
add this in.
let me ask the panel this. I mean, you all have children and husbands who need you. So how do you balance your obsession, which is your venture and your work, with your life, taking care of your children and your husband? Stacey?
I think ahead of everybody here, I only have one at home anymore. So it really isn't that bad. And my husband works out of the house. So the thing that helped me enormously, I have to say, is this community in terms of, there was a period when my husband was getting a little fed up with how much time I was spending. But he'd go out, he'd go anywhere, and someone would walk up to him and say, oh, I love Stacey's blog. I read it every day. So the more people that told him that, the more he backed off. So now he kind of knows that it's an actual thing. And he's a little more helpful in terms of pitching in. So my situation isn't so bad. My husband helps me in terms of pickups and...
How long before you got that validation?
It was a while. I don't think my husband's ever read my blog. It's not something he's interested in. And
But the outside validation that because you started on your own, and in the beginning 5 friends were reading it, but now you obviously have made something. So from the time you started until you said, oh gosh, I really have something here.
I don't remember how long it was. It was at least 6 months, might have been a year. I'll tell you the funniest thing that happened was Darien Times called to interview me for the paper. And they were actually interviewing him on the same day for something else. And so they called the house and he saw who was calling and he said, don't worry, that's for me. And it was the same reporter interviewing both of us. She said, no, I'm actually calling to talk to Stacey. So that was a good one.
Anyone else have a comment on what their husbands think of their venture and how you incorporate your life with your children?
Well, for me, I mean, my husband's obviously supportive since he helps me with my marketing. The kids are fairly understanding and supportive as well, but you know, every once in a while you just have to kind of put it away and just focus on them for a little bit. And I think that's really finding the balance, is that sometimes you just have to turn it off when most days you feel like you can't.
Well,
I think they'll pretty much tell you.
and you just have to plan your days out kind of carefully, you know, so that you know you're allotting, you know, the kids are at school or at an event, and you're like, okay, this is my time block, and you just have to stick to that time block. So when someone says, let's meet for coffee, you're like, no. Like, love to later, can't today, and you go and do your project. So, you know, you do have to just...
Leave the laundry, leave the dishes, leave the dog, and say, this is my time to work. I will do that later.
You have to be flexible. You definitely have to be flexible.
But that again is the benefit of having your own business.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
you create your flexibility, and yes, we all could be working for someone else, and then you forego that flexibility. And how, again, when you're thinking about what you want to do, how important is that to you? Some people might not care as much, some people might not have children at home. But for, I would think all of us, that was a huge piece of what was going to be important in whatever I did.
So my final question for the panel before we have some fledgling venture moms pitch their idea is, and I always like to know, like, how does it make you feel that you
have started your own thing for you. I mean, as moms and wives, we get so pulled from so many different, and it's very easy to lose yourself in your world with your children and your husband and the town or whatever you're doing. And the moms that I talk with, they feel a great sense of pride in what they've created. So what would you say has been the biggest benefit in starting your own venture?
The biggest benefit?
Or the biggest, your feeling. How do you feel now that you have created something that is yours and is successful, and how does it make you feel?
That's good. No, I'm always amazed. I mean, I am always amazed who I find out is reading, or it's very validating. It's very flattering. It's.
Do you think your kids are proud?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I get, you know, I have to tell them because they're not aware of anything.
Right,
You know,
right.
I mean, they don't know, but I get a text on me from one of mine in college, you know, I'll tell you a hysterical story. I have, my eldest son's in law school, and he was having dinner with a friend of his from school whose parents had come in to visit. And somehow they got on the topic of what their parents did. And my son said, well, my mom writes this blog, blah, blah, blah. And the mother of the other boy said, oh, what's the name of it? And my son told her, and she said, oh my God, I read that, I love that blog. So you never know.
You never
just
know.
never know.
They should be good.
Anyone else want to comment on how they feel about their venture and how it?
I think, you know, the important thing is you go through life, and we're all pretty self-centered creatures, meaning when you're a kid, you're probably the most self-centered, and you think that the whole world just revolves around you and your needs. And you know, then you move into your teens and young adult life, and you know, it's basically you operate and move around what suits you. As well, now when you start incorporating a husband and children, you no longer put yourself at the forefront and take care of you. And I think having your own venture does that for you. You're not working for somebody else, so I work for my husband, I work for my kids, and I'm working for this person over here, and I'm not getting, you know, the satisfaction of, well, you know, you put in 100 hours last week, and, you know, and here are your sales numbers, and this person, you know, sends me a thank you through a video phone, and, you know, from Australia, because putting a pen to paper wasn't enough for her. You know, I mean, I get that kind of validation. It doesn't go to some other CEO. You know, it goes right to me. So I think that's your validation.
Yeah.
You become who you are, and you have this person that is you. You know, it's nobody else.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the important part is being you, that power.
Right.
I think that you can, for my journey anyway, I think you get to know yourself a lot better. I think you start to really understand your strengths and your weaknesses a lot more. And I really enjoy that I'm home with my kids now. They're older. My daughter's 11, my son will be 15. And I wasn't home for them when they were babies, but you know what? I'm really glad I'm home with them now, because now's a tough time. Preteen and teenage years are a little yikes for kids today. So I actually do not feel bad that I wasn't home for them as babies, but I am thrilled that I'm home now. And I love the flexibility. And I think more so for my daughter, because she's more tuned in, I love the example that I'm setting, that you can be a woman, a mom, and be a business owner. And I don't want to say do it all, because I'm not a believer in the do it all. And I'm not a believer in work-life balance either. But I want my daughter to see that she can go after a dream. It's going to be tough. You have to work hard. But if you keep trying, you can be successful.
That's great. So I was wondering if anyone in the audience, any moms or have a venture that they would like to pitch to our panelists and get advice on what their next step should be, or what they should name their company, or anything at all. You can ask the panel. Yes.
I'm Abby Daly, and this is Katie Mitchell, and we designed this dress. It started about 4 years ago when I was much thinner, and I drew it on a piece of paper, and this is what I wanted to wear, and it didn't exist, and I wanted something. I wore a lot of Tory Burch, and I love her stuff, but it's all made in China, and we wanted something, we wanted something that was made by hand from America. And Katie's husband was out of work, my husband was doing very badly, and I said to Katie, will you do this with me? And we did it, that was only a year ago, and it sat on a piece of paper for 2 or 3 years, but I needed a partner. I couldn't go by myself. It was too daunting and we had no experience. So we found this awesome little family to make us this dress, and we don't know how to sew. We both have a little bit of design background, but so it was this wonderful experience. But now we're stuck because this wonderful little Colombian family was making it for us. It's Italian fabric, but they can't do it. It's taking them. They could make 2 a day, and so it would be forget it. So we went in and we found like 6 or 8 colors. We also did a tunic, which is this fabulous, it's also linen. The weft is white, and then the other, it's sort of iridescent. But anyway, so we went and found this man in New York, but we're just sort of stuck. Like, right?
Now what? Right.
Now what?
And actually, we really need finance.
We need
That would
finance.
be our next step.
We were calling it frock, but then I Googled frock, and it doesn't. So then we called it, can you pronounce this for me? Because I think it'll look better on a label, but this is a question. We want to call it Abriare, which is twinkle in Italian, or sparkle, because of this Diana Vreeland thing I read. So anyway, so we're just sort of stuck. And our other thing is that we really only have this one silhouette. We made it in wool too, which I love.
So is your goal to sell it in stores or do trunk shows or how?
Holly, and I wanted to say, you're amazing at this. You're really a wonderful moderator. So we thought we'd have a bunch made and sell them at trunk shows.
Well, probably if you started smaller, you would get feedback at the trunk shows before you did a very large investment and had to place a big order to sell at a big store. I mean, you might want to start and get your feedback and build your brand and your recognition through trunk shows. You might also consider made to order. A lot of the clothing people are made to order, so you just make your samples that people can try on, and maybe they want to choose their color. I'm just a big believer in don't invest, more than you have to, or until you know you have an audience or you have a buyer.
I actually just wanted to say
Sure.
something to you guys. I was at a photo shoot yesterday, and they fit the models with this company, and they were very like J. Crew-like. And what they do is they go to different offices and they take the measurements of the guys, because they don't get to leave and shop, not like they know how to shop anyway, really. But they go and they take the measurements there and they make everything to order, and they just carve out a time for them, like in their corporate room, and they go in there. So if that's something that you think is a silhouette, there's a lot of moms that are like either Morgan Stanley or they work in an office like that you could go and maybe, like they said, send out an email and say, this is what we want to do. And maybe it'll be a slow start, but you could do one at a time here and there. And as they wear it, they'll get compliments, and then they could post pictures to your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram. But go to the offices maybe and start small and say, okay, we'll fit you so that on your coffee break you're eating your salad and we're taking your measurements, and you can make it specifically.
That's great advice and a great way in the made-to-order world.
I was going to say that if you need capital, you are going to have to prove, have some kind of history and just say we're making it for this amount, here's our profit margin. So, I mean, you can get the capital, but they're going to first ask you, give us some background, how much, research have you done on the product. And the other thing is, if you're looking for a name, I really suggest that you go on the government site, and when you Google it, be careful, it's got to be .gov, and you can find out if a trademark name is taken. And you don't need to get a lawyer.
Right.
You fill out the paperwork yourself. They have videos there. Just take a couple hours to go through the video and really understand what it encompasses. But if you go to a lawyer, there's no lawyer.
Well, I do a
I'm sure
whole.
there are, but you don't want. You could be spending a lot of money you don't need to.
I
And
offer.
that's where you have a partnership, and someone could be tasking one thing, and I think also when you go to capital, that works in your favor to have a.
I would recommend with your name, I love the way it sounds because I'm Italian, but I would recommend that you keep it very simple and say what it is. Because with Fritabello, it's very sweet and charming and the story behind it is great, but you have no idea if it's a baby gift business or a food business or if the name means something. Don't make it so hard for people to figure it out. Say exactly what it is. Because what I had to do is I had to come up with a tagline that would describe what Fritabello is. So it just adds another layer, not horrible, but just another layer. So think about that, and I agree, go on the patent and trademark database, but be very, very careful when you are categorizing the trademark, because if you pick the wrong category, you have to pay again.
But they explain that in the video. Yeah.
But could I just say something about trademarking? If you own Fritabello.com, I think trademarking is important, but I don't think someone else is going to start Fritabello. Then they're not going to get the domain name. So make sure whatever your name is, you're getting the domain.
For your website, you need to make sure that whatever name you do come up with has not been taken as a domain name, so when you are...
Or it doesn't mean something else in a foreign country, you want to make sure.
That's what lawyers will ask you, is what does this mean in another country? And I would suggest to you as well that if you're toying with a few names, buy all domains.
Yeah, it's only like $10.
Exactly, so buy all of them so that no one else will get them.
I do that.
I would get feedback from friends and family. Come up with some names. I've written an article on my site about how to name a company, and it's a lot of brainstorming, things that mean something to you. Maybe you write a list of all your kids' names, or a street you grew up on, or a place you vacation. Then you write down, like for a dress business, it might be dress, frock, clothing, fashion, everything that relates to that. And then you look for synonyms. There are whole, ways to come up with a name, and you might come up with something, maybe it's that Italian name dress company or Fab Dress or something simple that works. And then tell all your friends and family and say, I've started a new dress company, it's called this. And if they say, what does that mean? Or you get the feedback before you move forward and then check the domain name. And then I don't think it's 100% necessary to trademark it. If you have the domain, I think you're sort of covered.
There was a place in Fairfield that they were calling their cupcake place
Yes.
something Sprinkles, and she had to give it up.
Right.
Because a company on the West Coast had the name, it was Sprinkles. I can't believe they that generic. But anyway, they were beginning to franchise, and she had to.
And she had to give it up.
Of her company. It does not cost that much. You type it in, and it's going to tell you.
And it'll walk you through. I think it's $350 to actually trademark.
Yeah, but I think getting hit with a $30,000 to $50,000 lawsuit.
It's worth looking. It's worth checking into.
I just want to say very quickly, I agree with what everybody has said. There are so many avenues nowadays to start to sell a product without having to go to venture capital.
Yes.
You really don't even want to go there until you are really established and ready. And like Etsy, it's a great venue. There's so many blogs. There's so many places you could get your name out there and actually sell product before you have to take that step.
Sometimes I would say, first two things. Name. If you name it something dress, that's all you'll ever be. Itty Bitty Bag. guilty as charged. So it doesn't give you very much room to venture out into something else. What if you decide that, you know what, I need a cozy pair of pants, but you're a dress company, and now your name says dress and you want to sell pants. So I wouldn't pigeonhole yourself like that, but what I will say is make sure that something people can spell. Because even if you put in like a number or something, people aren't going to know that there's a number in your name. Is it TWO? Is it TOO? Is it TO? Is it the number 2? I mean, there are 4 2s right there. So it has to be something that's easy to sort of type in. And the second thing is that the majority of my business is trunk shows, custom order, made to order. I let people pick the fabric. That is probably 70% of my sales. And I get the money up front. So I get the money up front and then I make them their item. So I don't think you need venture capital at all. Get the sales.
That's great advice. Yes?
Did you guys have financial goals or profit?
Not to lose money.
Any other questions? I mean, we're open for questions. Yes?
Yeah, actually, along the same lines. Of course, there's a lot of, it's a very gratifying thing to start your own business. There's a lot of intangibles that you get from it. But along those lines, I'm just curious, especially since a couple of you have Wall Street jobs, how does this compare to what you were making?
Before. Close.
I mean, yes, it's not. Given all the time that you're putting into this, does it literally pay off?
Well,
Not in money.
no, not money. But here's the thing though, when you work that 70-hour-a-week Wall Street job, you are outsourcing everything. You're outsourcing, help around the house. You're outsourcing daycare or nanny. You're outsourcing all of your cleaning. I mean, everything's outsourced. So at the end of the day, how much money did you really make? And that's, you're a hedge funder and, your salary was 5 times what mine was, then, are you really making money? So what I worked out was that, my 401k was fantastic. Well, that's what I'll shoot for. I'll shoot for my company being profitable enough that the money that I make that is separate from our personal income, that's my retirement plan. So that's my focus right now, is saving that money for our retirement.
I think it's important to have clear financial goals, but I don't think it's a good idea to start measuring if you're successful or not if you don't make them. Because it will take, at minimum, 3 to 5 years just to get started. So if you don't have a backup plan for those 3 to 5 years, then either A, rethink your idea, or B, rethink your time allotment, that maybe this is a part-time gig and you've got to do something else to compensate that income. Because there's nothing worse than not being able to pay the bills when you're doing what you love and you're stressing so much that it stops the creativity and stops your business. So that's a personal decision I think that every business owner has.
Jennifer, I think that's good advice, but I'm going to disagree a little bit on the 3 to 5 years. A lot of the moms that I interview are profitable from the first month with no outcome, no business plan, no babysitter. The women I talk with, they've started and they've made money right away. Now, I will agree in certain ventures and certain things, there's a big lead up. And certainly, Wall Street money used to be, not anymore. But I haven't met a venture mom that's making Wall Street money yet, just to be quite frank. However, a lot of the moms that I interview are starting at a level when their kids are younger and they're allotting the time based on their mommy time and their venture time. But they have goals that as their kids get older and don't need them, or it's talk to the hand, or they're in college, you're going to have a lot of time and they can grow their business as their kids grow. And I think, your growth path is important to look at. I also think it's important to look at doing it without startup capital and without the expensive outlays that many businesses get. That is my whole message, is you don't need a business plan, you don't need startup capital, and you don't need a babysitter. And all the moms that I write about, 98% are doing it with that in mind and with that formula. Yes?
Part of it is you do need to set yourself up with things like taxation, sales tax, and filing tax. So now you can get doing something that all I can see is expense and not much revenue. So So I haven't got a huge amount of money to pay someone else to do those things for me. I mean, what's your advice on that point of view?
In terms of the taxes and accounting?
That's the bit that's stressing me, not the bit I'm going to do, I can do in my sleep. But it's how I actually make it legitimate so I don't fall foul of the IRS.
Well, you make a quarterly estimate on what you make each quarter.
I don't like to, I seriously, I
Okay,
have no idea.
okay, I have a venture mom who does accounting for small businesses. She will help you do that. Anyone else have
Yeah, and
space?
I actually, before I did this, I did something else, of course. And I had actually a small Italian luxury goods company. And it is not complicated to set that stuff up. I did it all
Because
myself.
I would want to do this up, I'm not going to.
It's not hard.
And then pay someone else. to
It's
do
not
it.
hard. I set up FedEx, I set up the shipping, I did everything. It's not hard. It's
I
not
just
hard.
have to do the research on it and look on the web and find out how you do it. And
Yeah.
it's there, all that information is there. And then you just gotta start taking the steps to it. And
I mean, there are multiple sites on LegalZoom, and you can set up your own LLC.
Legal Zoom, again, is paying someone else, when I just set up my account.
I think it's important to recognize what you can do well and what you can't. And the things that you don't do well or you really don't want to do is barter with someone's
Yes.
services to get them to help you to do it, or pay someone. If I even attempted to do any of my own accounting or financial, forget it. That was something I made a decision when I started the business, that I am giving this to my accountant, so I don't have to stress. I don't need the IRS coming after me when I'm selling $35 journals. So I think it's important to recognize what you do well and where your creativity is, and you outsource the rest. That's what successful people do.
And I think there are a lot of resources that are not expensive for the small business owner, for the startup. I think there are a lot of resources, and I would suggest using another mom who puts that out as her venture. She helps you, and maybe you're a great cook and she can't boil water, so you say, would you help me do this, and I'll make your family meals for, I think, I see a lot of the moms that I talk with.
Clear that for tax then.
Well, I would suggest you talk with your attorney and your accountant. I'm not giving tax advice. Well, I would talk with a woman who is an accountant, or a man, you
You
know,
go on YouTube and they give you
everything.
videos, right down, they have
There's so many
instructional things.
tutorials
walking
out
through it.
there.
There's just.
I'm going to give a guy a
Like
chance
they're
to
saying,
talk.
there is stuff out there that will explain everything.
don't be afraid of it, is the thing.
Yes, don't be afraid of it. That's the
Fear
message.
factor that you just have to get over that and just start.
If you
Move forward. Don't let that stop you from moving
No, I think
forward.
that's the control freak part of me. I want every part of this to be something that I don't, you like
Right.
to create.
I'd like to give a guy a chance to talk, since we have so few.
I've started my own company, and in order to do that, it costs, between the domain name, it's $10, posting for a website is $80. And then to register as an LLC in the state of Connecticut, you just go to the website, and it's $125.
Yeah.
So we're all in under $500.
And then you have your entity tax up.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's not expensive.
Right.
Yeah,
you'll
that's
get-
$250 a year.
250.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is the information is out there, and the cost to entry is minimal. So did we have, yes?
A question along those lines. So are you all registered LLCs in the state of Connecticut?
We're an LLC, yes.
LLC.
I'm not because I
Right,
don't
you
sell
don't-
anything,
right,
but
you
when
don't
I
sell
had my other company, yes, I was an LLC.
Right. Yeah, and the state of Connecticut does, I mean, when you go to their website, it is, pretty clear on how you fill everything out.
Yeah, and they're very standard forms, and it's a very.
You can do everything online now.
Right.
I actually utilized Intuit, INTUIT, and they did for a very small fee, it was like $50 or something like that. They did a name brand search for me, and they filed my LLC. I did file with the state of Connecticut for the tax portion of it, but they would have done that for me as well. So there are these small business services that you can use that will take some of the work
And
out
help
if
you
you're completely
through.
clueless,
So another question up front?
And my company is called Baby Baby. I just launched it, and it's meant to revolutionize the way that people pack their diaper bags. It's a little kit made from recycled materials, and it has everything that you need for a day out with your baby or toddler. It goes from size newborn to size 6, so you can get any kind of diaper size that you want. And there are 8 different varieties. There's a potty training version, there's a green organic version, and many different versions. So I have a website, and my question is, how do I become the de facto baby shower gift, or get people to use my product and know about my product?
I can tell you.
Okay,
You write to all of the big baby blogs.
yeah.
I was gonna say the
The
same.
mom blogs. You write to Elizabeth Street Mom. You write to,
Cool Mom Pics.
Cool Mom Pics. You
Yep.
write to Joanna Goddard. You write to all those people who have huge readerships. It will happen very quickly if they like your product.
The mommy
That's
blog, the mommy
Mommy
world
blog.
is a huge world in
Huge.
terms of dollars spent and the number. I mean, women, moms rule a lot of the world. So, not all of it, but reaching out to that market, it can be very viral.
Very.
Any other?
I
Yes?
just had a question for Stacey. You said like 5 friends were reading your blog in the beginning. At what point would you say, how long did it take you before you were getting like 5 invites to go to events?
Oh,
Did
it's a
you
long time.
2 years?
solicit in the beginning to be invited? Like at what point did that happen and how did it happen?
All right, yes, I started, let's see, I'm trying to remember. I started locally. So I would try and like, I can't remember.
But also, the interesting thing that I've noticed in watching you, I think I interviewed you when I first started, so it's been about 2
I only
years.
had a blog for 2 years.
And the thing about a blog, you would go out and cover local venues. So you would go and talk about the store Pimlico in New Canaan. And then, so you're talking about it, and then the people that were at Pimlico are writing about you and telling their friends, oh, Stacey B, you have to cover, you have to read her blog. And then,
Yeah.
am I right? And
Yes,
so the things
absolutely.
that you were choosing to cover, they wanted to search back to you or link back to you.
Yeah, so I did. I started with, as I said, I started when I was on Nantucket. So I did, my first 2 weeks were all about Nantucket. And I forgot one thing I did. I did little cards. I had little cards made that said, you've been featured, with the name of the blog on it. And heaven knows if anybody used it, but every time I wrote about someone, I would send it to them.
A postcard.
It was a postcard size, so they could keep it on their counter, and they didn't know I only had 5 graders.
That's
I tell everyone that. Stop saying that.
And well, I mean, it's okay now because it's much bigger. But they didn't know that. Plus, every single time I wrote about someone, I don't necessarily have the time to do that anymore. But every single time I wrote about someone, I sent them an email. And I said, I just wanted you to know that I love what you do, and I've written about you on the blog. You can see it here.
Okay.
And then they would post it on their Facebook, on their Twitter. Go see what I'm featured on Quintessence. Go check. So then that goes to all of their readers.
And before you start, one piece of advice I can say is if you want to be taken seriously, make everything look professional. I didn't do anything till everything looked right. And I'm not saying to impede you from starting. I'm just saying there are a lot of blogs out there that are chit-chatting, and that's great, and that's what they want to be. But if you want to look professional, then act professional. And your business card should look professional. This is a whole larger issue to talk about, which we don't have time to do.
Like we could do a whole panel on blogs and how to use a blog to further your business, how to start a blog.
That would be great.
The next time.
No, but but this is true for any business. It's not just a blog. I'm sure everyone on the panel would say the same thing. That how you present yourself in every format is important. Whether it's online, your business card, your Etsy shop. You were saying how, it's important that the photographs look good. All of that's important. It's all important.
So do we have other questions? Yes?
Chris, how do you make money with the blog?
It's a good question. It's a lot of blogs make money by taking advertising, which I don't do. I could, I've had tons of offers, but I don't do it because what's very important to me is the editorial integrity. And I don't want, in fact, I'm going to post something this week about this, because I have so many people who approach me who think I've been paid to write about something and I haven't. So for me, that's the most important. I get paid by Cottages and Gardens to write pieces for them. I get paid, obviously not here, I'm doing this because this is my community, but I get paid to speak. And I'm going to be investigating other ways. But most blogs make money through ads.
You know, that's a question my husband always asks me. When is your blog going to start making money? And I think, you know, there are a lot of ways. There are ads. You can do a directory of who your followers are. I think speaking, books or book tours. I know for me, my latest thing is that because my mission is supporting the moms who I cover, I'm now sending my followers to their shop to buy their items. So there's a bit of affiliate marketing in there, but affiliate marketing, and I also have an online store. Affiliate marketing, that's a whole nother seminar too that we could do, but there are a lot of ways, but I think, and this gets back to the point that if you're passionate about it, sometimes, like when I first started, no one was reading mine either. But I couldn't stop. It was something I felt viscerally, I had to do this. I didn't want to be 75 years old and say, God, I had that great idea and I was going to share these cool stories and yeah, well, I never put it out there. And I got to tell you, pushing the button the first time, I was scared to death. I thought, what will my friends say? What will people say?
I actually get scared every time I put something in the mail.
Yeah,
That's every day.
and you know what, to be honest, I mean, everyone is a huge support, and I think women especially just want other women to do well. And I think the support has, well, okay, well,
No, I was just thinking, I'm laughing because I have a friend who's a very successful blogger. Her name's Rhonda Carmen. She writes all the best. Her book is coming out from solely next month. And she put on her Facebook page the other day, and had so many clips from all of us, that there's a very special place in hell for women who don't help women.
well, yes, exactly. I agree with that. Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
just curious, beyond today's presentation, are there some networking groups either locally here in Fairfield County or in the city that you would recommend for all of us?
I can recommend, I belong to two. One is the Women's Business Development Council, the woman that was just here. They offer fantastic classes and offer a lot of one-on-one consultant support. I would also recommend, and I'm a member of Entrepreneurial Women's Network.
Yes.
And in October, whoever asked how to make money from a blog, that's the topic, is how to make money from your blog. So they offer educational dinner events, networking, and it's a really wonderful, wonderful place.
Great place.
Entrepreneurial Women's Network.
EWN, if you Google it, they have speakers and events all the time for networking, and you can also sponsor their events if you're looking for advertising.
We have Kate White coming tonight from Cosmopolitan to our
Right.
event, so you have a half an hour to sign up.
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to ask the panel if you have any advice, if you have, if you're not selling a product, but a service, how to get started, would you just?
It's the same.
Well, it's the same, because ours is in essence a service. I mean, it's not a product, but it's a service. We'll provide a service for you and free.
But you have to have clients.
But you have to start somewhere.
We have to start somewhere.
Friends and
So,
family.
friends and family. And then you have someone who has seen the dress or has seen the video that we produced or seen the bag. And they then spread the word.
Friends and family is huge.
You talk to anybody who's successful, it's always the same story. You have to start somewhere. And
I mean, I would start with an email. Tell everyone what you're doing and send out an email. Also, I think with a service, a blog is really helpful because let's say you're offering a dog walking service. Well, you could start a blog and you come in and say, oh, I took Spot Rover out to the park today. Don't go there because the trails are really wet. Here's a picture of Rover catching the ball. And then tomorrow you say, oh my God, gorgeous day. I took Spot and Jesse and wherever, you know. So I think then you're building a relationship. And oh, by the way, I offer a dog walking service in this area. I think for services, a blog is a great way to share what you're doing and give, not say, let me walk your dog, but say, oh, if you're going out, here's a great place. I took my charges out today and this is what I did. Or you're offering an exercise class. This week I'm focusing on, you know, thighs and I did this fun exercise. Do it at home. or come to my class. I mean, the blog ideas are endless, and particularly with a service. Yes, Sarah?
As an add-on to that, I'm hyper focused on the services part of it because you're relying on likely people, for the beginning anyway, people in your community, possibly friends, to buy your product. And I have service to offer, and I'm terrified to offer it in the town in which I live. Because
Can I ask what's your service? Okay.
I manage events. I'm not thinking of doing a venture, but that is the world that I come from, and I can do it.
Okay,
But
so
because I don't want to do it. I'm scared to do it in this town in which I live, and I have a million friends, and what if I do a bad job?
Okay.
And then,
Let me just stop you right there. Let me just tell you, I'm sure that every single one of us is going to say the exact same thing. Everybody has that fear.
Yeah.
What if I do a bad job? Get over it.
And learn from it. If you do a bad job, you learn.
And own your mistake if you know.
Chances are, if you're that paranoid about it, you're going to do a good job.
Yeah.
And how bad a job is it going to be? What, someone's never going to talk to you again? Someone's going to badmouth you? It's not going to happen.
But I also think,
Take on what you feel, you know,
Yeah,
start
start
a
small.
project that
That
is
you
not
can
like
do.
the wedding, but it's a small event. I mean, start small.
Right.
Start small.
I also
Go from
think,
there, get a reputation, get yourself comfortable.
exactly, I
And
also,
take on the big event.
sorry, I was just gonna say, own your mistakes. Let's say you sent out an itty bitty bag and it had a stain on it, and hopefully that woman is gonna call back and say, Jennifer, this one, you're gonna say, oh my God, absolutely, let me make it again.
Well,
So if
that's
someone,
a little different than, oh yeah, let me redo your wedding.
Yes, it's a little different,
My
but
question was more focused on
the service, I
Yeah,
think
I
you,
get that.
well, and let me talk a little bit about pricing, because women have a really hard time saying, this is what I charge. Figure out your pricing up front, and even if it is your best friend you've known since kindergarten, give them a sheet of paper that says, I charge $50 an hour, this is what you will get, I need a check for 50%, I expect to be paid when the service is complete. Because if you don't want that awkward feeling, well, I thought you were doing this for free because you've been my best friend forever, and gosh, you know, be very clear up front and own it. Don't be afraid to ask, but always give them an out. Say, this is what I charge. I wish I could do it for free, but I can't. This is what I charge. If that doesn't work for you, I totally understand.
Right. And don't think of starting with a wedding. Start with a party.
As I say, just a small,
And
just
start-
start small.
Yeah.
You have people everywhere. You could start like in the, one town over, I'm sure, and
Yeah.
I also did it on my own, but I've never done it this way. But my husband passed and I've completely given up. So, because he was a big help. And so now to start, kind of is unnerving.
It's never too late.
I agree.
Right.
Never
It
too
is.
late.
Just,
No, but to start it this way.
yes, yes. Sure.
I would like to know where I can go, I mean, an easy way, not expensive, that I can go to the internet to create a website. Because I've been calling different places, and it's expensive, and I don't want to spend a lot. I want something very simple that maybe I can create it. I know there's a lot in the internet, but I can spend hours.
You know,
Creating a website is very, very difficult.
And I know it has to be something nice.
Do you have any young people in your life? Like teenagers?
Maybe someone can.
I think he's going to offer some advice here.
So, I'm going to say two things. One, I will say without self-promoting, which is there's easy ways to do it. It all depends on the business of the website you're doing and how central. Websites are important to every business, but it's about how, there's simple websites that you can just get the simple information of your business up there. And then there's more complex ones where you're going to sell and you're going to go the next step. And knowing, at some point you will eventually need to find someone that does websites. That's what my company does, so that's. obviously the self-promotion side. And so, you know, there's two things. Some websites are really cheap and others are really expensive, and it totally depends on what you want. But the best thing is always to be clear in what you're saying, what you want the website to do. And there's free options like WordPress.com where you can start a simple blog. But then there will be a point maybe when you need to move on. So
Well,
researching free blogs and then researching services around
But
you.
that's overwhelming. I think we should go for specific.
Well, I started a website years ago for something I was working on network solutions, and I was not computer savvy at all. Now I was using a template, but then I figured out in 2 hours how to use their template and write my words in the website. Now it was very simple, but it was free with the domain name registration, which was $10 a year. Now obviously, if you want more advanced, I have venture moms who provide that service for you and overlay your template, because then you're not buying a GoDaddy or Network Solutions template that everyone has access to. You're creating your own. But I go back to, I mean, you're wrestling with what you're spending and making it perfect with, I don't have a lot to spend and I just need to get it out there. And there's a happy balance in between. I mean, the perfect website could be thousands and thousands of dollars. There is access to a free website on those Network Solutions, GoDaddy, and WordPress that I know about, that you could do it yourself.
Even Google, I think you can build a website on Google. It's crazy.
Right, you just have to start.
You just have to
Once again, start small, and then as you learn more about it and get more comfortable with the material, then you can look to
upgrade. And as you make money in your venture, then you might want to hire someone to spiff up your website.
Enable it to do the work.
So any other questions? Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.